Welcome to the Scarfs and Spikes. Sydney, Tyler, and Tommy with you. Thank you so much for watching today. Special edition as MLS Cup is happening on Saturday. And as you can see, we have a couple of special guests. MLS Gone Wild, Blake is with us, and the Scarf from Defenders of the Banc is with us. And I forgot to say, Blake is a Crew fan. The Scarf is an LAFC fan, as you can probably tell by now. But gentlemen, how's it going?
Trying to say this is celebrity deathmatch scarves.
Yes, celebrity deathmatch scarves and spikes. Exactly.
Nah,
exactly.
I like
How's it going, guys?
Scarves got me beat, man. His wall is way better, way more put together.
It took a lot of Flex Power Tools, our sponsor, to make this happen. So don't worry, we did okay.
Yeah, yours is a little bit
happy
more.
MLS week to both of you.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
It's nice to still have an MLS week at this point of the season, right? It's just us, Blake. We're gonna cause some trouble down in Columbus.
The top two teams. Yeah, I hope to see you there, man. You said you already got tickets. I'm still working on getting mine. There was the whole ticket debacle thing. There was a code release today. There's just, if you guys don't follow the Crew hashtag on Twitter, check it out, because that's all that's being talked about today is the ticket debacle, and it's tough. I won't get into the details, but it was tough.
The resale value tickets are they're up there.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
It's like that in Atlanta for sure.
Well, there's a little big difference though. When we can fit 70,000 people, you can still afford to have cheaper seats. These smaller stadiums, it's, especially in, I would say, especially a post-COVID world, like the price of everything is just absolutely insane to any event. And like Ticketmaster loves to do like the premium sale tickets. So like no matter what, any event that you try to go to these days, it's just they jack the prices up so crazy.
Listen, I'll say this though, born and raised in Los Angeles, nothing felt more Angelino than paying like $700 for my ticket last year. And now this year, my flight and my ticket is still cheaper than what I paid for my ticket last year. So thank you, Columbus, for hosting this one. We appreciate it. As much as I want to be back at BMO, believe me, Columbus in December was not on my bucket list, but really, I'll take it.
Really, are you going to be sitting? Are you going to be sitting with the supporters group?
Just likely, yeah. I'll be with the whole crew up there. Yeah.
How much were those tickets?
All right. So for us, it was offered after the Ticketmaster fees. They were like $125 a piece.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I heard something different. Somebody told me 50, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right.
So I can't quote what the supporters pay for theirs. I don't sit in the supporter section in the north end. I sit in a different part of the stadium. So I didn't have access to the supporters price. Gotcha. On the tickets. I will let the supporters out what that price is if they would like to. I will not be the one to do that because I have to see all them at BMO at some point.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the Crew fans.
Well, those are good seats though, where they stick the supporters in the corner there.
Yeah.
I've sat there many times for when Atlanta comes to visit Columbus, and they're great. It's a great view.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. First time in Columbus, and again, anytime you can stick it to the pre-courts for trying to kill the Crew and then play a final in that stadium, I'm all for it. That's just fun for me too. So let's do it.
It's going to be sick, man. You're going to love it.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thanks for coming out. Really appreciate your time. Obviously, a big week for you both, for both of your fan bases, I should say. So let's go ahead and get started. And first question I want to ask is, going to 2022, and Scarf, obviously, LAFC, we're just coming off an MLS Cup for the ages. And Blake, little uncertainty with Wilfred Nazi coming in, but take us through the expectations for 2023 you all had prior to the season. Scarf, probably start with you.
Yeah, the operative word is plural. Trophies, plural, coming into the season. Playing in the Champions Cup, playing in the Leagues Cup, playing in the Campeones Cup, even the Open Cup. Why not, right? We were playing for at least 4 different trophies before we got here. We got to the final match in some of those. We came up a little bit short in some of those. And so for us, it's a huge relief to have gotten to be able to play for one last trophy this season, because coming into this season, all the expectations, all the pundits were saying, right, could this be the greatest MLS team of all time? Could they win a domestic triple or a quad or whatever it might have been? We have fallen short on every single one of those expectations, frustratingly close in some of these matches. So for us to be able to have one more shot, or as our head of the voice of LAFC likes to say, another bite at the cherry, Max Bretos. For us to be able to play in MLS Cup final it's that last shot, right, at some redemption on what I was talking to you guys about this pregame. Any other MLS club would look at this season as a remarkable success, playing all the way to MLS Cup final. But for LAFC, if we don't win this match, then you're looking at a huge miss in terms of a lot of opportunities this season.
So Caleb, for the Crew, obviously saying goodbye to Caleb Porter at the end of the 2022 season, bringing in Nancy from Montreal, some changes in the personnel on the field. What about you? What are your expectations for the Crew headed into this season?
They definitely weren't as high as what Scarf disregarded for LAFC. It wasn't like MLS or Cup, multiple trophies or bust. The Columbus Crew, when in reality, are a team that in 2020 they won MLS Cup. There could be an asterisk on it if you want to put it, whatever. We won MLS Cup. I was at that one as well. I was at 2015, so I hope to be at this one, not to go back to that. But it's a team that won MLS Cup in 2020, then missed the 2 years after that, missed the playoffs in 2021, 2022. Caleb Porter was then fired the day after Decision Day 2022 after they lost to Orlando. And then the offseason began. And then arguably the biggest offseason signing of, the preseason to 2023 leading up to this year was Wilfred Nancy to the Crew. You can argue all the players you want. The biggest signing this offseason was Wilfred Nancy to the Columbus Crew. Wilfred Nancy coached one season for CF Montreal. CF Montreal hadn't made the playoffs in 5 consecutive years up to his hiring, taking over for Thierry Henry. They finished second in the East. And somehow the Columbus Crew were able to pry him, although there were their own personal issues going on with Wilfred Nancy ownership over there in CF Montreal. But they pried him and brought him over. And just how he turned around CF Montreal, he's turned around this Columbus Crew team. So while we weren't hoping for trophies, I think we were all expecting playoffs, like at least. So I think that we are kind of ahead of schedule making it to MLS Cup, but rightfully so.
So the season has a lot of ups and downs, right? And this season felt like it took forever, right? So many international breaks. You got Leagues Cup. So you're going ups and downs. So for each of you, what was the lowest point of your season, and what was the highest point? Where was the moment you were like, this is our team right here?
Look, I don't mind saying you can pick from several lowest points on the season for us. By the way, this will be game number 53 for LAFC this season. Wow. By far the most that's ever been played. I didn't realize how many games Philadelphia had played. They played like 51 games this year and didn't even make it all the way to the final of a couple different. Oh, I'm going to piss off a lot of Philly fans. Never mind. That's all right.
Perfect. Great.
When you lose...
You're in a safe space. Piss off.
When you lose the Campeones Cup final on penalties, when you lose leg 2 at home to León 1-0, the way that we lost it, when you lose to Monterrey, when you have to go play in the Rose Bowl, and it just felt like another Liga MX team coming in and beating LAFC over the course of the last couple of years, it just felt like it was body blow after body blow after body blow. And we absorbed it by playing pretty poorly over the next couple of matches after each of those, right? So it felt like the hangover was real for all of those. So when you ask me to pick out of 53 matches, surprisingly, LAFC, I believe, has won less than half of those matches this season. But out of all of those matches, I think for me, the one that hurt the most was probably the way we played at home against León, losing 1-0 with having everything to play for in front of us. We were only down 1 on aggregate and really had to put a better showing than we did, and for us to fall as flat and kind of be physically handled the way we were. We weren't handled that way since an Open Cup loss to Galaxy a couple seasons ago. So it felt like it brought up all of those demons as well. There were a few different low points for sure on the season for LAFC.
What you got, Blake?
Yeah, it was tough to single anything out. When I first saw the rundown, the low point for me personally is when we sold my favorite player, probably all time for the Columbus Crew, Lucas Ilarion. I mean, he was one of the best players in MLS. We're going to talk about transfers later, and he will come up. But that was like a personal low point for me. I was like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? And then we brought in Diego Rossi, and it's seemingly worked out. Yeah, you've heard of him, right? I'm sure we'll talk about that later too. But now look at where we're at. So like, although it was a personal low point for me and I'm losing my favorite player for the Crew, we're still doing quite well, I would say. But I think from a club standpoint, our biggest low point was like the 3-match stretch ahead of Leagues Cup, where we played Miami, New York City FC, and Portland. We dropped we dropped points in 2 of those 3 games after the 80th minute against Miami and against Portland right before. And then we rescued a point against New York City FC. So if you guys remember last year, 2022, under Caleb Porter, the Columbus Crew dropped probably more points. I don't have the numbers up in front of me, more than anybody else in MLS after the 80th minute, late in games, whatever. And the doubt was starting to like creep back in. Like, well, we hired Wilfred Nancy. I thought this would be gone. And here we are. We're still dropping points late in games. This mentality hasn't changed. We haven't found a way to close these games out despite having a lead, despite a new play style under a new coach. Like, the doubt was starting to creep back in, and the PTSD as well. So I think that was kind of a low point for a lot of fans, seeing that there's been all these changes. But the thing that killed us the previous year, when our expectations are to make the playoffs and we didn't because of those reasons, that was kind of a low point for us. But then after Leagues Cup, we got rolling a little bit, and here we are.
So Blake, would you say the highest moment was around 9:30 on Saturday?
Absolutely, man. I didn't want to use that as my example, but there's no way that you can't use that, right? So like I just said, the opposite side of the coin, the Columbus Crew are a team that, over the past year and a half have dropped a bunch of points late in games. Well, the Columbus Crew were down 2-0 in the most meaningful hell is real match ever, and it's in its short history, but the magnitude with the season on the line, hosting MLS Cup on the line, going down 2-0, like that was also a low point for a lot of fans. Like, oh shit, maybe this is over. And at the hands of our bitter rivals, our bitter in-state rivals. And then to take what we've been bad at, which is giving up late goals, and serving that to the opposition and scoring 3 straight goals late in the game. And I mean, in a match of that magnitude to clinch the hosting rights, I mean, that is the highest moment of the season. There were plenty of other highs. There were good wins. There were great goals, but nothing compares to that.
So I've got a couple questions for both of y'all, and I'll start with Blake on this one. And this is the first of the 2, but because I feel like Columbus has more options here. I think it's maybe self-explanatory for LA, but who is your MVP?
Wait, you mean mine's obvious? Hold on. I don't know what you're talking
about.
I'll say this. Yes, the answer is Denis Bouanga, right? Because of all of the goals that he has scored this year and what he means to us offensively.
And why. That was the part too.
Right. Yes. But what I'll say is this. Let's put Denis Bouanga aside because I think he's just been in kind of a different category in terms of goal scorers this year. And I'll weave this into what my high point other than this match is too, is that we get to watch Neo see the Matrix every time number 14, Giorgio Chiellini, comes out onto that pitch and plays the defense that he does match in and match out. I'll say this. I still think, other than foot speed, Giorgio Chiellini is the best defender in Major League Soccer at 38 years old, however old he is, because of what he does to the entire team. They're able to play so much more confidently with him on the back line. He has taught Jesus Murillo how to play his position and not gamble nearly as much as he used to. He has brought in guys like Ryan Hollingshead and Chiqui Palacios on the wings and said, you go attack. I'm going to go attack with you, but I'll be able to get back. It's just what Giorgio Chiellini means to this team. If you watch them for 53 matches, like we're about to watch MLS Cup final be our 53rd, Denis Bouanga is, yes, the MVP. He's the name that gets all the glory, but defense wins championships. And Giorgio Chiellini, to me, is just as important to everything that we do as Denis Bouanga.
As an Italian, I agree with you.
You and me both, my friend.
Blake, what you got?
So mine is pretty obvious as well. I mean, we have a matchup of the ages in this MLS Cup. Cucho versus Bouanga. Cucho is easily the Columbus Crew MVP this season. 20 goals, 13 assists across all MLS matches, both regular season and postseason. And I mentioned a guy by the name of Lucas Ilarion earlier. When he left, Cucho had to step up in such a huge way for the Columbus Crew. Lucas Arion was both playmaker and goal scorer for the Columbus Crew. And I mean, Cucho as well. Like, he's shown the ability since he's come into MLS that he can do both, but he had to step it up an extra level for the Columbus Crew because Diego Rossi came in and he still had to get acclimated. He wasn't going to come in, hit the ground running, and immediately contribute. He did well, but he wasn't up to the level that we needed him. Cucho stepped right in and was scoring hat tricks in back-to-back games and just scoring a ridiculous amount of goals. And I mean, the amount of volume that he creates, both shooting and chance creation, is just absolutely incredible. Arguably the best player in the league, arguably the best 9 in the league. And he plays it completely differently than most other 9s do. But then on the flip side, like, I can't just give you Cucho and just run with it. Like, I mean, there's 10 other players I could give you, honestly. And I put out a poll on Twitter right before this, and a lot of people voted for Aiden Morris. A lot of people said Nagbe in my comments. I initially had Patrick Schulte just because of recency bias and what he's done in goals, some of the ridiculous saves he's had. He had one on Bupenza in the Eastern Conference Final, a couple against Orlando late into extra time. Like, he's been incredible, but for me, it's Darlington Nagbe for similar reasons why you named Chiellini as your guys' MVP. Experience, age, he's been there, he's done that. Nagbe hasn't, won the, Champions League and whatnot, but he has won 3 MLS Cups. He's going for number 4. Yeah. He's made at least 6 of 7 MLS Cup conference finals. When he makes the playoffs, he's incredible. He's the heartbeat to this team. Yeah. He controls the pitch better than anybody else. And if you guys looked after that game, just the raw emotion that he was showing after winning that game, like, a guy that's won 3, that's been to so many, you would think like, this is just a walk in the park for that guy. But like, he's showing credit to the work that he took to get there. And like, this is not easy. I busted my ass for this. And I'm emotional. I'm happy. I'm proud to be wearing this crest, representing the city, representing this team. And although a lot of the stuff that he does doesn't show up on the box score, the fact that he does represent this team and play the way that he does, and just kind of, he's dominated and controlled the game in a new system under a new coach. Like, his experience has shown through this season, and I hope it continues to get him to number 4 this weekend.
As an Atlanta United podcast, like, we love Nagbe for obvious reasons. So like, we can't go an episode without talking about Nagbe. Right. Sydney's gonna have a question for you in a minute about Rossi, because we mentioned, we were all talking before we actually went on here and started recording, but Diego Rossi, his transfer for a while broke Atlanta United's Twitter because everybody thought he was coming to Atlanta, and it was like, oh my God, it was so overwhelming.
Obnoxious.
So I'm glad he finally found a landing spot, and he's doing well. But I do have one, and this one, I'll start off with Blake on this one specifically for a reason, right? So Columbus has played LA 3 times.
Oh God.
In its history. Columbus has yet to score a goal against LAFC. So how does that change in this match? What's
you don't
different?
say that the week of a championship game,
right?
You jerk.
Look, this is
what
a
are you doing?
Podcast, okay, Tommy? Look, there's no bias here. I'm just asking.
Just bringing him down this late at night. Oh
It's
man,
even better when they go and do something.
Man, that's actually funny, because I was, walking out the front door to go to work this morning, and as I was milling around the house, I was like looking up stats so I could be ready for this. And I wasn't going to bring that up, but I was sure somebody would. And I told my wife in the midst of talking about purchasing tickets that I was like, oh shit, the Columbus Crew have never beaten LAFC, and we've never even scored on them. And she's like, you're going to pay to go to that game? I'm like, yes, I'm going to pay to go to that game. I'm a sicko of this league. Okay. But like, the reason I'm hopeful is because the Crew are playing at home, right? The Columbus Crew, they were 12-4-1 at home in the regular season. That's second best in Major League Soccer. They're 2-0 this postseason, and they're tied second most home goals in the regular season, 41 goals, only behind your guys' beloved Atlanta United. So we're really, really good at home. LA's got to travel across the country. It's always difficult to win on the road in MLS. So like, that's a very simple answer, but that is probably the most basic answer I can give you. The only other one is like, one thing that we know about Wilfred Nancy is his style of play is unwavering. We're going to play the way that we play. And the way that we play is possession with a purpose. We have the most possession in MLS. We have the highest field tilt. We also have the most shots from open play. So we're not just possessing the ball for no reason. We're possessing the ball with a purpose. A lot of our possessions start at the back and at the front with a shot, whether it's on goal, whether it's not, we're ending with something productive. So the fact that I know that we're going to have that volume is promising. I know that we're going to give up chances going the other way because LAFC is one of the most direct, one of the best counterattacking teams in MLS, but I've seen it kind of all over the place. Christian Ramirez said it on a podcast last week. Like, attack is our best defense. So we're just going to have to outscore LAFC. It's going to be a run and gun game, I think. It's going to be a lot more wide open, I think, as the second half plays on. But like, I think that the Columbus Crew are going to play their game because that's what Wilfred Nancy does. And we're going to have chances. We just have to make sure that we put away those chances. And we also have to deny one of the best players in the league, in Denis Bouanga.
Yeah.
So you do mention playing at home. 2 of our 3 wins, 3-0 and 2-0, have come in Columbus. A quick thing there about playing on the road against Columbus. It's not a place that we mind going very often. And I don't know if you saw the last 2 matches, but we basically told Houston and Seattle, take the ball. Here, we'll figure out how to counter everything else. So, it's tough, right? I will say, our leading scorers in the fixtures, other than Carlos Vela, are Adama Diomande, Mark Anthony Kaye, Jose Cifuentes, and Laurent Simon. None of those guys are going to be scoring goals for either team in this match. So I think if you look maybe back at the game last year where we won 2-0 in Columbus, you can kind of draw some parallels, but still no Wilfred Nancy. So I think everything changes. I think this match it's in a snow globe. It's in a time capsule all by itself. I don't think either team has really seen much of anything like what we'll get from each other. That's going to be a lot of fun, though. That's for sure.
Yeah, and you bring up that you guys didn't have the ball in your last 2 matches, and I agree with that, but I also think the Columbus Crew's attack is far better, and the possession is much better, and the end product is much better than what you have in Houston, who leads the line with Quinones, Bassi, and Baird. Or if
Don't
you
forget
have
ex-LAFC legend Corey Baird. Yeah.
Yes, that's correct. And then the Seattle Sounders with Jordan Morris and those guys. Like, I think that we have a far better attack than both of those teams do. And similar to what we just saw in the Eastern Conference Final, if you look at that game, the way that our possession was and how we kept the ball and how we moved Cincinnati around for so long, and we kicked the door until we could kick it down, and we finally scored a goal. Like, we wore them out. And I think that is something that, is easy to say, like, oh, if we have this much possession, LAFC will be tired because they'll be chasing the game. Like, it's a very cliche, simple thing to say, but it happened to FC Cincinnati. It can also happen to LAFC, although they have a little bit more depth. By a little bit more, I mean a lot more depth than FC Cincinnati had. So you guys will have that ability to make those subs to come in and have fresh legs and things like that. But I do think that is a real possibility as well, that our possession does wear you guys down. And that is one of the few areas where I was like, that is something that I can point to and say that could be something that sticks and could be a reason why the Columbus Crew could win. And then you also brought up some of the goal scorers against the Columbus Crew. I was looking at your guys' goal scorers during this playoff run. The only attacker that has scored in your guys' 5 games? Denis Bouanga.
Yeah.
It's all Denny. So I mentioned, and it's a very simplistic thing, you have to shut down Denis Bouanga. It's a tough thing to do, but if you shut him down, none of the other attackers are really doing anything. Then you have to worry about Murillo, Chiellini, Hollingshead, those guys on set pieces, because you guys have scored 14 this year, and we're not great defending set pieces either.
Yeah, you knew Mariano Rivera was throwing the cutter, and yet still he's in the Hall of Fame for a reason. Denis Bouanga, I believe the 4th highest, and this is such a ridiculous stat, but I'll say it because it's true, the 4th highest goal scorer in the calendar year of 2023 in professional soccer.
That's crazy.
I mean, it's MLS, right? So take it for what it's worth.
Hey, man, throw it out there if it's valid. All right?
Yeah, the guy in second place plays in Estonia, I think. I'm not kidding. I think that's true. So, but when you have a guy who everyone knows, right, that is going to get the ball in some form of an attacking position. We had one good chance really against Houston in this last match in the first half, and it was because not Denis Bouanga getting a good ball that sent him into open space. It was Denis receiving the ball, looking and going, I'm going to beat my man to the spot. I'm going to get into the box and get into a dangerous spot. That it wasn't even a nice through ball by Tillman or Ilie or Kellen or over the top like Giorgio, what we've seen. It was Denis just going, all right, I'm going to beat you there, and then I'm going to put it away. And I think if he comes into this match with that fire, and I think he will. I mean, look, I think Denis turning anything off at this point is just not going to happen. I think the way that he is playing in that attacking mindset, I think he can turn nothing into a moment of brilliance. And we have plenty of players. I mentioned them, but I didn't mention Carlos Vela, by the way, who might be the best offensive player of the last 6 years in Major League Soccer. I think that a player like him, he can certainly do everything that's necessary to put Denis, put Kike Oliveira, even put, like you mentioned, guys like Murillo and guys like Chiellini who have had their chances in the box. Hollingshead, man, I love that guy so much. He's a striker out of UCLA who's been asked to play a wing defense almost his entire MLS career, and yet he's got 3 goals. I think he tied Graham Zusi for the most goals ever scored by an MLS defender with that last goal, with 35 in all competitions. I get that Denis Bouanga is the only one to score in the last 5, and by the way, he's done that for a count of 10 goals in those last 5 games. But with everybody else who can contribute, if we can get them to contribute in this match, I think it's a wrap.
Man, so, you guys are good because, like, you guys just keep going back and forth, and I'm like, oh man, LAFC's gonna win. And then Blake comes in, and I go, oh shit, Columbus is gonna win this game.
Yeah, no, but I don't have another one on Columbus right now, but just the whole Bouanga thing, and like, because the Bouanga thing leads into, it's a snowball effect with Denis Bouanga and how do you defend him and things like that. I looked it up prior to this podcast. He scored 7 goals in 9 games versus teams that feature a 3 center back system. So, you know, when you think about the 3-5-2, 5-3-2, whatever the formation is a Columbus Crew play, it's a 3-4-3, whatever, but it's a variant. There's space in between the right center back and the right wing back, especially whoever decides to play that right wing back. They have to be very honest about how they play that position. More recently than not, it's been Mo Farsi, and, you know, he has a little bit more speed than Gressel. He's younger. He's a little bit more fit. He's a little bit more physical. And I think that's what you need against a guy like Denis Bouanga. Although you have to understand, like, we're not playing Mo Farsi to specifically defend Denis Bouanga. Mo Farsi's playing so he can also get into the attack, play inverted, combine, all those kinds of things. And Steve Moreira is oftentimes going to be the guy that's left on an island because they're going to leave Denis Bouanga high when Mo Farsi is going and chasing the game. And then it's 1v1 out wide with Denis Bouanga and Steve Moreira, who Steve Moreira, if you look at the FC Cincinnati game, he had more dribbles like into the final third. Like, he was really, really, really involved. And so that's also going to be something that he's going to have to be very honest with. And Wilfried Nancy might have to say, hey man, hold that back a little bit. We're not going to go into the midfield as much. We're going to need you back there for if they spring a counterattack that you can be there on Denis Bouanga. And I agree. Denis Bouanga he's a freight train, dude. He is scary as hell when he gets in open space. So we need guys touch tight on him. Like, I don't care. Foul him. Like, foul him before he even gets the ball. I don't care. I mean, you have to do what you have to do in a game that's a one-off. There's a trophy on the line, MLS Cup final. Like, we have to find ways to shut down their best player.
Yeah, we'll take that red card next year.
And I think on the opposite side, you know, Kike Oliveira is the unproven commodity that we have in that third spot up top, right? With Carlos Vela and Denis Bouanga, you know what you're going to get. With Kike Oliveira, he, in the beginning of the season, you mentioned Freight Train, his was without tracks. You did not know where he was going to be going with the ball. He was going to try to split 2, 3, and 4 guys, but he was just as likely to pass it out of bounds or cross it into nobody as he was to make the right play and find the right channel. What we have seen over the last 6, 7 weeks from Kike Oliveira is this development into a player who's able to look up a little bit more, look across the pitch a little bit more, and he still has that ability to take somebody 1v1, to break 2 men down and cut that ball into the box so that maybe, just maybe, Denis doesn't have to do it all by himself, or it doesn't have to be a through ball. That's going to be the interesting part. As little as we can make Denis work, as few times as we can make him work to get into those positions, is how you'll judge how successful we can be in this match.
Okay. Yeah. And I think there's 2 other players I just want to mention one more time for the Columbus Crew. I love a good revenge game. Therefore, you know, this is a Diego Rossi game. Like, he's going to come out hungry, motivated. He won the 2020 MLS Golden Boot with LAFC, and he's coming to the Columbus Crew, and he's played a different role, a very free role, free attacking role. So I'm sitting here wondering, because I've been thinking in my head all day. I'm like, well, we saw Christian Ramirez come in and impact 2 straight games in the MLS Cup playoffs off the bench. Do you start him against a team that has 2 pretty big center backs in Murillo and Chiellini? Or do you play the 3 guys that are very interchangeable, come off the back line, could possibly drag a center back off so then somebody can run in behind if you start the Cuchos, Matan, and Rossi's of the world? So I've been kind of, you know, rattling my brain about that. And I think that's the route that you go. I think you start 3 guys that are very interchangeable, try to pull one off the back line and then get somebody running it behind with that interchangeable movement. And then late in the game, if we have to chase a goal, bring in the big body and then bring in Gressel out wide. Those are difficult lineup decisions. And that's why I'm happy I don't make it. The only other name I want to bring up one more time is Darlington Nagbe, man. If there is a key to why we win this game, it's because we have the guy that has more experience than anybody else in MLS currently in MLS Cup final.
Yeah. Hard to argue with Darlington Nagbe. He's a guy that if you ask poll MLS players who their favorite player is in the league, it wouldn't surprise me if it's either Darlington Nagbe or Dax McCarty, right? Those are the two guys.
Right.
So.
People keep saying, maybe not the best player ever in MLS, but the best MLS player ever. Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
And I've long said he might be the most underrated American soccer player to ever play so far for us. He's that good.
It's crazy.
If
He started
only
off
he
as
would
a left
play
winger.
for the U.S.
Right.
Well, he did, but hey, you know.
I mean, now,
Yeah.
when it matters right now.
Yeah, no, you're right.
Right.
You're right. World Cup.
Yeah. So, guys, we kind of hinted at it earlier. The both of you did about transfers, and then Blake, you're talking about Delarian, very significant outgoing transfer for the Crew. But as far as both of your teams are concerned, who is the best incoming transfer from 2023? Again, you both kind of hinted at it, but just to kind of answer.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you can consider this a transfer, but I do. On September 17th, LAFC acquired a player that arguably gave more than any other player to win the MLS Cup last year. And that would be the broken leg of one Maxime Crepeau. So when you get to add a player to your back line who was as good of a keeper as he was last year, and all he's doing is spending time getting healthy, getting ready. And I saw him against LA when he was playing for LAFC 2 in a couple of matches. He moved like I do, and that's not a compliment. You don't ever want to move like I do on the soccer pitch. He looked slow. He looked rusty. It was rough watching him out there for the first couple matches. And then to see him play against Seattle when he had, 7 saves, 3 or 4 more tips over the bar, great plays coming out of nowhere on some of these balls. He didn't have to do a whole lot against Houston at all. There was that one dangerous cross from Hector Herrera into Corey Baird at the 8th minute or so, where he had to make a diving save going down to his left. But other than that, he didn't have to do much against Houston. But to be able to get a player like that, and as well as John McCarthy played before that, because John McCarthy was playing great for us. Yeah. But I think what you saw is the ability to have a player the caliber of Maxime Crepeau come into the season. It's September 27th. So he's got to play 3 solid months of soccer to get us to MLS Cup final. And he did that, and he's healthy now. Clean sheets in his last 3. I don't think he's given up a goal in something like 360 minutes, something like that. He is at the top of his game right now. To be perfectly honest, we didn't bring a whole ton in at the transfer window. We really kind of stayed pat. So our biggest acquisition throughout the course of this season, to me, was getting back Maxime Crepeau in goal.
When you said it wasn't going to be a player, I thought you were going to talk about Gam. We got this Gam, and it was the best Gam we've ever received.
We got some Monopoly money, and it helped us out.
You could have me sit down in a 4-session class on TAM and Gam and how MLS uses it. I still don't think I'm going to understand how.
Blake, before you go, or before you go here, I want to talk about, because it's a Land United podcast, Julian Gressel. So your thoughts about him coming in, because it seemed like he came in, started almost immediately, right? And then has been more on the bench as you've moved on.
Yeah. I mean, he would have been, if we were to do this podcast right after the transfer window, if you asked me who the best transfer was for the Columbus Crew, maybe the best transfer in MLS in the summer window, I might have said, I might have, God, I can't even speak right now. I might have said Julian Gressel, just because of he's been one of the best crossers of the ball over the last however long he's been in the league. To be quite honest,
at least since 2017.
Right. I mean, he's been one of the best crossers of the ball since then, and he's had moments of brilliance when he's been with the Columbus Crew. I just think that it's been quite matchup dependent. It's been who can be the better, more physical defender in these MLS Cup playoffs, because although the first round wasn't like this. It's one and done. You get to Orlando, Orlando, it's one and done. FC Cincinnati, it's one and done. We need somebody that's fit, physical, and can play on both sides of the ball. And Mo Farsi, who kind of fell out of favor when Julian Gressel came in, he has worked his way back in. And Wilfred Nancy's always been a coach that has loved to play the young guys, really promote them, give them chances and opportunities. And Mo Farsi's another guy that he might not be considered young anymore, but he's, a guy that was primarily with Crew 2 last year, like with Patrick Schulte, Sean Zawadsky, those guys. He's given them chances, and Mo Farsi took that chance, and he's really run with it. And Julian Gressel has not signed a contract with the Columbus Crew for next year. I don't know if he will be back. I think Mo Farsi will be back because I think that he feels like he's probably earned that position and kind of won that position over, especially playing in the biggest games in the biggest moment this time of year.
And boy, that game changed immediately when he came in.
Oh, yeah, and I didn't even touch on that. But, yeah, he came in, and I talked about him being one of the best crossers of the ball in MLS. He came in, and, again, the Columbus Crew's possession, having that much of the ball and possessing it the way that we do in the areas that we do and constantly knocking on that door, that's going to wear you out. And we had pushed them so far back. They were so tired. So Julian Gressel had free reign. And that's a good moment for Julian Gressel to come in and dominate. He has fresh legs. He has space. He has time. People aren't pressing him. He can serve in a ball to a kind of broken up back line to a big guy like Christian Ramirez. That is the moment for Julian Gressel. I still think he's a starter in this league. It just might not be for the Columbus Crew. But he came in. He started the games we needed him to start in when we signed him. And he was an impact sub this last game. He's doing the job that we're currently asking him to do. So I can't ask any more of him. But I still don't think he'll be back next year.
Yeah, of course.
So who's your favorite transfer then? Best transfer?
Obviously, an easy answer would be Diego Rossi. We've talked about it, but I think my favorite and probably our best transfer is probably Malte Amundsen from New York City FC. We got him after Will Sands, who was our starting left wing back at the beginning of the season, tore his ACL on April 22nd in a game against Charlotte FC. So Wilfred Nancy and Tim Bezbachenko had a decision to make in that transfer window while the window was still open. Do we ride with Yaya Boa, who technically when we brought Yaya Boa in as a 22 under 22 guy, he was a inverted right mid, a left-footed guy that would cut in with his left foot, speedy, that kind of thing. And Wilfred Nancy, like he does with a lot of players, converts them to a position that fits his system. And he did that with Yaya Boa. We also had Jimmy Madranda. And I guess Tim Bezbachenko and Wilfred Nancy looked at it and said, we can make a trade inside the league for an undervalued asset. We can bring in, give him a chance. He's not playing for his current team. And they went out and got Malte Amundsen. He had won MLS Cup with New York City FC back in 2021. We traded $500,000 general allocation money to New York City FC. And honestly, he was supposed to come in and just be a left wing back. Now he's a starting left center back. He's positionally flexible, and he's contributed in big ways on both sides of the ball. I know you guys remember very well that bomb he hit in the first round of the playoffs. Yep. So he's done that a couple of times. He's scored a lot of goals.
Look, I'm going to blame it on that $500,000 of Monopoly money, which is a lot of
You erased that immediately. Good. But yeah, so when I think about an important transfer, he filled an immediate need. We had an injury to a starter. How can we go out and improve that position? So as much credit as I'm giving Malte Amundsen for coming in, filling that need, contributing, you also have to give credit to a guy that's gotten credit for these similar things over the course of his MLS career, and Tim Bezbachenko, and also Wilfred Nancy for identifying in intra-MLS talent.
Yeah, hats off to them both for really filling positions of need for the Crew. And, here they are in MLS Cup and Nazi's first season. And Bezbachenko has proven to be really one of the top executives in MLS for that reason. So hats off to them for really building that program up there in Columbus. So, guys, big question to wrap it up.
Is it that time? I know what's happening right now.
It is that time. It is that time.
Oh, God.
And Scarf will start with you.
I'm nervous for Blake here.
Yeah,
I'm really nervous for him because, his eyes, he was not ready. He's known about it, but I don't think he's still ready.
Is that bottle or is that vodka?
Yeah.
It's water. I wish it was vodka.
Yeah.
We'll let you go last.
Okay, thank
We'll
you.
give you a couple more minutes to prep.
We'll let the fan of the defending champion go first. So, Scarf,
Sure.
why do LAFC win MLS Cup on Saturday?
All right. So one of the reasons I'm going to point out is Aiden Morris. And yes, I know he plays for his team and not mine. But as I looked through the 2020 MLS Cup winning roster over on Columbus Crew, and I looked at the 2023 roster over on Columbus Crew, the only name that was on both sheets that contributed at all, I even think that was in the 18 or the 21 or whatever it was for the was Aiden Morris. Now, I do think, in my opinion, Aiden Morris was the player that jumped out off the pitch for me as, oh, dude, that guy's pretty good. I know Zellerand scored 2, but Aiden Morris seemed to be that glue guy in the middle, did a lot of right things for them. He's the only one that's played in an MLS Cup final, whereas it was a year and a month ago, because that's how ridiculously long this season has been, where we played in what is likely to go down as the best MLS Cup final of the first 25, 30 years of this league. And we have a lot of guys who have been there before and a lot of guys who have done things with their experience before, even if it's not for LAFC. You have the Carlos Velas of the world. You have the Daniba Wongas of the world who have played. He's played all over against all kinds of people. You have Giorgio Chiellini on your back line, and he's playing like Giorgio Chiellini should be playing on your back line. I think that is absolutely incredible. You have players like Ilie Sanchez and Kellen Acosta in your midfield, who I think if you were building like an all-experienced team in all of Major League Soccer, you might want guys like the guy who scored the final penalty kick to win you MLS Cup in 2022, and the guy who's been putting all those set pieces in places so that we do score more set piece goals than any other team in Major League Soccer by Kellen Acosta. And to have the embarrassment of talent and riches around them, we haven't mentioned Diego Palacios, the best left back, in my opinion, in Major League Soccer. And he gets no love. And it wouldn't surprise me if he walks at the end of the year and says, I'm going with Thiago Almada over to Europe somewhere. On the right side, you have the best scoring defender in MLS history with Ryan Hollingshead. And he's not old in the tooth like Graham Zusi is. He's still young, so he can do some things. You got a guy who scored in the All-Star game and who scored in finals before, and Jesus David Murillo, the soon-to-be Canadian national team keeper, now that he's healthy and ready to go, in Maxime Crepeau, and a young up-and-comer in Kike Oliveira on the right side. So many weapons coming at you from so many different angles. To me, it is an embarrassment of riches to be able to wear the true black and gold, not black and yellow, but black and gold. And I can't wait to see what this team is going to do when you put our feet to the fire and give us one more chance. We've had way too many chances as it is. I know we've won 0 trophies so far, but one more chance. This is it. All chips into the middle, 90 minutes. I'm rolling with these guys.
All right, we're gonna need to get a little more fired up, Scar.
I need a cigarette after that.
Holy.
Hold up.
You were turning red.
Yeah.
You weren't breathing. Like there was no stoppage for air. You weren't
You
turning red.
blacked out.
You, sir, you are a national treasure. Blake, I'm glad we gave you a couple extra minutes. Wow.
What you got?
There's no pressure.
Holy shit. Yeah, man.
I need a red card.
That's going to be really, really hard to follow. First and foremost, I want to thank you for bringing up my guy, Aiden Morris. That's my boy. I usually bring him up every podcast I'm on, usually at least 10 times. I didn't bring him up at all this game or during this podcast. So thank you for doing that. He's a huge piece. He shut down Nico Ladera in 2020, put his name on the map, got injured, came back. And he was another guy that you could have, he could have been another guy that I named as MVP. His offensive numbers have stepped up tremendously, and he's added so much in the attack to his game that we didn't know he had. We knew he was a good, a hunting center defensive midfielder, a guy that was going to break up the game, Tyler Adams-esque center midfielder, but he's just added so much in the attacking side of the game, both goal scoring and assisting and chance creation. He's been phenomenal. And I'm not gonna run through and name all the players' accolades and all of their experience, because we're kind of the opposite, to be honest with you. We have MLS Next Pro champion in goal Patrick Schulte. He's won something, but it was the level below this, and he came in, proved that he could do it for Wilfred Nancy, and Wilfred Nancy said, "All right, buddy, you proved it to me. You're my guy, and now you're in MLS Cup," and he's gotten us here. Mo Farsi, we talked about him. He's won it over Julian Gressel. And, he was also with the MLS Next Pro Champs last year with Patrick Schulte. Sean Zawadzki's played a lot of serviceable minutes for the Columbus Crew. We've got intra-league guys in Malty Amundsen. Rudy Camacho is another guy we could have named as an intra-league guy. Like, those are two guys with experience. And then we have those two in the middle. And and then we have the 3 killers up front. So what we might lack in just overall general experience, because we're a little bit young, a little bit pieced together throughout the year, we've gotten better week after week after week. We've had some shutouts in the playoffs. We're scoring goals. We're playing at home again. We have the best attack in MLS. I'm going with the Columbus Crew, obviously, because I have to. If I said any otherwise, I wouldn't be on this fucking show. So I think it's going to be a hell of a game, though. You mentioned that Philadelphia and LAFC was the best MLS Cup of the first 25, 30 years. I think this one's going to be even better. Scarf, you didn't say a score, but I'm going to go ahead and go first. I think the Columbus Crew win 3-2.
Ooh, I like it. We have the same score, except obviously different teams. I definitely agree with you that I think it's going to be much more open of a match, right? I think that when you had last year's final, to me, there was so much talent on the pitch up and down between Philadelphia and LAFC that it didn't play as open until it needed to play as open as it did. And I think that this may be the repeat of exactly that. I think the biggest bit of trouble for Columbus is when we score first, we don't lose. And if we are able to score first and open up the game a little bit, while I know Columbus may even want that style, right? They may even welcome more open play. I've just seen it for 52 matches up until this one, that when you're able to open up a team and have them send bodies forward and then get out of shape a little bit, that's when LAFC can really start to open things up. But I absolutely agree. I think we are going to see 5 goals in this match. I've got 3-2 for my guys. You've clearly got 3-2 for yours, but it's going to be a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, so I do think it is a reality that LAFC does come out and throw the first punch. Like, I don't doubt that whatsoever, but what this past game did for me, the Columbus Crew versus FC Cincinnati, seeing us go down 2-0, we're not a team that usually comes back, but with our backs against the wall in a huge match to host MLS Cup against our bitter in-state rivals, like I mentioned earlier, to come back and win 3-2, like that reinstilled some hope with me. It was a really low point conceding 2 to them and being like, that's our season. And now I have to talk about it in that light. But no, we come back, we score 3 goals, we win. And now we get LAFC, who I think could also score the opening goal, throw the first punch, and then we have to respond once again. But we're doing it at home, where we've been one of the best teams in MLS all season, with 3 of the best attackers in the best attack in MLS. I think we win this one.
So I'll throw this out there too, really quick. Just to add on to that, when Columbus was playing Atlanta, one of the stats that we kept going back to was, well, at least Columbus doesn't come back in the second half and win games if they're down at the half. And then you win. And then you win. Yeah. And then Cincinnati happens. And so I do, like, I agree with both of you. Y'all's points are amazing. Again, Tommy, I need a cigarette. I'll get a cigar. I think the back and forth is great, because I think anybody neutral listening to this would be like, man, I don't know who to freaking choose. Like, I don't know who's going to come out on top, because it really could go either way. And I think that's awesome.
Yeah, this kind of parallels what happened with us when last time we lost to Seattle, right? It was because we had beaten Galaxy so badly the match right before that, and it was kind of us getting to the mountaintop. It'll be interesting to see. Look, I don't know that Columbus cares about the hell is real rivalry as much as Cincinnati does this early in their club's career, right? But I think that at least for those players that buy into that might be maybe a little bit of what plays into how they're going to go in this match. I think the other thing that helps is it's not a typical MLS travel schedule, right? We're going to get there a few days early. There's media day. There's a couple other things. So it allows us to get acclimated a little bit. So I think that could help us as well. But, look, I think you're looking at, like you said, Cucho, Diego Rossi, and Christian Ramirez. That story, that narrative writes itself. And then, of course, I think the thing that's not being talked about as much, although we have talked about it here, you've talked about it way more, so I'm going to get in trouble, but not mentioning Steve Cherundolo. Wilfred Nancy and Steve Cherundolo may be the 2 best coaches in Major League Soccer at this point. I mean, Steve is yet to lose in the playoffs in his 2 years and won MLS Cup in his first. And I think, again, we talked about it pre-show. Wilfred Nancy is every coach's favorite coach, right? So I think it'll be a battle of tactics, and it's going to be insane to think that it could be second half substitutions, key chess pieces that are moved on the board in a different way in the 75th, 80th, 85th minute that really seals the deal for this match.
Well, Tyler and Tommy, I don't know about you, but as a neutral, I'm looking forward to this, and I think it's going to be a really good match. Probably not as dramatic as last year. It's going to be hard to top last year in dramatics, pure dramatics.
We'll see.
I think, yeah, we'll see. But
if this has anything to do with how the game's going to be,
Right.
I'm gonna need a lot more to
Exactly.
drink by the end of the game.
Exactly.
And I am so sad that I have tried to be so good. And I'm so sad that Blake got to drop the first F-bomb on our podcast. I always thought it would be me. I always thought it'd be me.
Right.
And he beat me to it. Like, he's already a legend on our show. And
Sorry, guys.
Congratulations,
challenge accepted. I'll get it out. I'll get one out sooner than later.
No. Well, look, it's not that we intended for it to be that way. It just happened that way.
Okay.
Hey, it'll just naturally happen.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
sure when we
natural
play.
that a guy by the name of that goes by on the internet, MLS Gone Wild, drops the first F-bomb on this podcast.
I gotta be
Congrats. We'll
Tommy
send
Gone
you-
Wild now. Jeez.
We'll send
it's
you trophies in the
usually-
mail, Blake.
Appreciate
It's usually my podcast partner Philly that drops all those on
Yeah.
ours. So I'm the middle school teacher. I can't. I'll get in trouble.
Right.
Oh yeah.
So guys, listen, it's been a lot of fun. Really appreciate having you on. Just let people know where to find you on the internet. How can people follow you and keep track of what you all are doing?
Yeah, sure. At Defenders of the Banc everywhere, and that's Bank with a C. I know it's called BMO Stadium now, but I guess we have street cred now or something because our name has a stadium that's not used anymore. But yeah, at Defenders of the Banc everywhere except for Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it now. That's at Defend the Bank. We're 286 episodes into a humble little podcast all about LAFC, and you can find us anywhere on social media. Hit us up. We'd love to have chats like this with all you guys about any team you want to.
Yeah, and you can find me, Blake, over at MLS Gone Wild on Twitter, Instagram, a little bit of TikTok, wherever you guys listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify. I've been a little bit slow, I will say, on the podcast side this year. Life has gotten busy, got married this year. Just a lot of crazy things are happening.
Congrats.
Congrats.
Thank you, guys. Just had to drop that little nugget. But I will be back more so on the mic. Like, I'm happy to be doing these guest spots, and it's just less pressure to do a guest spot. But yeah, follow me, MLS Gone Wild, anywhere you listen to podcasts. We'll be back in a big way in 2024. You better believe that. And then I also do a MLS fantasy show. If anybody that's listening is interested in MLS fantasy, it's called Dropping Points. If you guys play MLS fantasy, come check that out. It's me and Brian Maurer over from Charlotte FC. We put that together, give you weekly fantasy advice. Pretty fun. It's a pretty light show that, just gives you some good information. So, yep, follow us there.
I'm a sicko and I bet on MLS, so I need to start listening to that.
Yeah.
Check it out.
Right.
This dude has made more money this year than should be allowed. It's really
Yeah, no
stupid,
doubt.
actually.
I just guess first goal scorer every time.
Yeah. Scarf.
Well, good
Blake,
luck, guys.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on, and best of luck Saturday.
Thank you for having us.
Yep, thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
See ya.
Appreciate you.
See ya.